What is up everyone, I'm Piglet here, and we are returning back onto the PlayStation 2 once again. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll present you our next redo Let's Play.
You there, take these golden fruit that imprisoned me and follow me if you want to get rid of these Pac-people forever!
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we'll present you our next redo Let's Play. This time around is the next installment of the Pac-Man World trilogy of games. This time around, we're going to be diving right into Pac-Man World 2. First came out in, I think it was in 2002 if I recall correctly, released on both Nintendo GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox only in North America. And obviously, as you can see on screen, I'm going to be playing this on the PlayStation 2 version just because it was the only version I actually got at the moment. Well, I used to have both the GameCube and the PlayStation 2 version, so I thought to myself that PlayStation 2 version might be the ideal thing for me. Because otherwise though, what's the point of able to tackle through both versions of the game? It plays pretty much exactly the same, except with a different control types, as you know. However, for this particular point, I'm actually going to be switching over to the widescreen mode, as you can see right there. So that way it just makes everything else a little bit more nicer, especially noticeable how the fact that we still be working on with this particular capture card for years now. So anyways, let's dive right into Pac-Man World 2. Seriously, I'm really looking forward to able to doing this game again. Well, usually relatively speaking, we usually did this back in 2012, but we no longer have those Let's Plays because for one obvious thing is the fact that the quality itself looks really horrendously awful. And especially noticeable, not to mention with the commentary itself, is pretty bad to top it off as well. And hopefully, since this is now in 2020, that hopefully the actual Let's Play should be better than the forms of how it does it from before. So yeah, let us begin.
terrible, terrible news! Pac-Land is in serious danger. The ghosts have unwittingly unleashed an ancient evil upon us by removing the golden fruit from the tree. According to this book, our ancestors fought against this very evil. In ancient times, the great wizard Pac created a powerful potion that turned 5 fruit from Pac-Land into the golden fruit that was stolen today. Armed with these magical fruit and a great deal of bravery, Sir Pac-a-Lot faced the all-powerful ghost known as Spooky. Sir Pac-a-Lot defeated Spooky and imprisoned him. And he has remained there until now. Pac-Man, the golden fruit are in the hands of the devious ghosts, and Spooky is on the loose again. You must retrieve the golden fruit and defeat Spooky, or all of Pac-Land will be doomed.
Alright, so let us begin with some sort of like a hub world kind of level, which appears to be Pac-Village. By the way, I love these loading screens, by the way, but I'll talk more about it until later. So, Pac-Man, welcome to Pac-Village, the heart of Pac-Land. You have a long adventure ahead of you, but you can't always return home for some diversion. Alright, so which one will that be? The arcade is in this building to the right. Sure, it's usually the taking care of it things. And she'll give you a tour around the arcade if you like. So yeah, and let us get on to the forms of the important matters. So yeah, much like in the forms have been, well, if you've ever played Pac-Man World on the PlayStation, then you do realize is the fact that we actually got ourselves these familiar items returning, such as these Pac-Dots, Pac-Wedges, like, you know, the health wedges, which gives you a bit of health. If you grab these little Pac-Man icons, it'll give you an extra life. And there's also these new types of collectibles in this game this time around, which appears to be those Namco tokens. What are they used for? Well, I'll explain more about this whenever we continue on with the actual Let's Play itself. So yeah, if you ever guys played Pac-Man World before on the PlayStation, you know exactly how it sounds. Basically, it's like a 3D platformer with a, well, Pac-Man twist. Like, basically, you're gonna be gathering around, like, collecting certain things. Like, you know, as you can see on screen, we are collecting these Pac-Dots, and especially noticeable with the returning fruit, as you can see on here. So, but either way though, unlike the ones in the original game, that normally if you're trying to collect those fruits, that once again it allows you to get yourselves 100% progressions going. However though, it's the fact that unlike in the first game, that you do have yourselves these little fruit doors until you're able to actually activate certain hidden areas, especially noticeable with these hidden items that we can able to actually just to grab, but that's no longer the case this time around for this game. But it does have some replacement stuff, but it appears to be by the forms of, well, I'll get to more about it until later, because as you can tell, obviously we managed to explore around in a Pac-Village, which again is more likely kind of like a hub world or anything like that. Well, it's not much for the actual hub world, but it's more likely it's like a town thing, where you can able to do all sorts of things. Like, for instance, for example, that is what Professor Pac-Man did manage to able to tell us, that there was actually a little bit of an arcade building just into that building over there, as I was trying to able to stand on. However, much like in the forms of in Pac-Man World 1, that I'm probably not going to go for 100% completion for the sake of this Let's Play, but I'll try my best if we're able to actually accomplish something. But usually because of that though, we'll explain more details about this whenever we continue things on with the actual main thing itself like this. And what the heck do I just got stuck in between the actual rock and the building or anything like that? But anyway, obviously today's day is of course the 2nd of July today, in this case in 2020. Not much else has been going on sadly, apart from the fact that recently that both Mario and Sonic are now starting to be focusing on their next Let's Play for our channel, which appears to be Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020, specifically for the Nintendo Switch. Despite the fact that, you know, as you guys probably already know, that sadly that the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games has been postponed until likely for next year or so. So yeah, it's kind of sad in particular, but either way though, we just want to get these games finished before we move on to the biggest selections of Let's Plays we can able to actually just to go by. But then again, we'll talk more about it until in the future, but either way though, let's just go ahead and just see what is beyond around those little particular buildings right here. I can see that little melon over there. Yeah, I used to have, as I mentioned this before, I used to have both versions of this game. It appears to be the GameCube version and the PlayStation 2 version, while I no longer have the GameCube version because I just simply just sold it away. So as a result, I figure I was able to actually get I managed to go myself well, I did manage to first got the GameCube version back in the day in 2011, and during around the same year actually, I managed to pick up the PlayStation 2 version. Why? I have no idea. But I've managed to able to actually go myself a little bit too easy on the actual parts itself, and every now and then that I decided mainly focusing on one version at a time. Sure, there might be some exceptions, like for instance, as you know, that we did manage to done both versions of Sonic Unleashed back in the day, which is one in for the Nintendo Wii / PlayStation 2, and another one by the forms of the Xbox 360 / PlayStation 3 counterparts, you know? So yeah, all these Pac-Man's movesets has been returned ever since in journey forms within Pac-Man World. As you can see, that one of them is actually by default around Referral. And much like the forms of the original game, Referral can be pretty useful, especially noticeable if you're trying to 100% everything in this game. Speaking of 100% in the game actually, in order to be able to achieve that in certain levels, as you can see, we need to gather every single fruit, and especially noticeable with every single Pac-Dot, as you can see right here. And yeah, that's pretty much about it in terms of Pac-Village, as you can see right there. It's a nice little relaxing kind of level, so that way you can get used to with the controls and all that stuff though. But since I've played this game quite a number of times in the past, so I know exactly what I'm going to be doing here. So anyways, the next level we have is the Bare Basics, which is basically it's like a first proper main level. And because basically in this first world in particular, it takes place in a grassland, so as a result, pretty typical standard stuff in terms of the forms of the beginning portion of the games themselves every now and then. Especially noticeable, unlike in the ones in Pac-Man World, that it does manage to take place in Pirate World in the first world. And then after that it was the Ruins, and after that it was Spaceland, and especially noticeable with the Funhouse, and heck, even with the forms of the Factory, and finally the Haunted Theme World during at the end in the forms of Pac-Man World 1. A little bit different from here this time around though, because obviously they're trying to make things a little bit different in terms of world themes this time around to make it a little bit more, how should I say, traditional. Like, the first world, as I said before, is like a typical standard grasslands kind of environment, as you can see right there. Which makes it pretty obvious because it's the easiest world in the game. So even then, that's one I'm able to point it out. The Buzz Bounce does make a return from the likes of the first game, so even then, once again, if you really want to get these remaining collectibles, as you can see right there, like, for instance, I managed to go myself these Pac-Dots and fruits. Sometimes I have to bust them out with the actual butt bounce with that crate, as you can see here. And just like in the original game, it's the fact that you do have 4 units of health, so if you somehow dare run out of your health, you'll lose a life. So even then, you just have to watch out for that. And I think, fundamentally speaking, unlike in Pac-Man World 1, that basically after when you collected every single part, specifically if you manage to gather yourselves all of these letters representing the forms of Pac-Man's name, normally it gives you the forms of opportunities to get yourselves a whole bunch of extra lives during the forms within the bonus levels and stuff like that. Well, that's no longer the case in this game this time around. Although, there's actually that one little rare spot that you can able to actually find yourselves some good chances by giving you several extra lives, which again I'll point it out whenever we get into it. So even then though, we'll just go ahead and grab some more Pac-Dots from here, and grab an apple while simply just dodging these little prickly stuff. And for the most part though, I've seemingly to say for this point is the fact that much like in forms within SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom, that this is another one of those games that most people found this to be a fan favorite. I have no idea why. I'm pretty sure it's more likely the nostalgia feeling, or perhaps it's mainly because the music itself is super memorable. Which I would say, between both Pac-Man World 1 and Pac-Man World 2 as well, I actually really enjoy most of the music. Mainly with Pac-Man World 2 most likely, because, well, it just really fits the atmosphere or anything like that. And plus it's a little bit more bouncy and catchy as a result too. But so whenever we get on to Pac-Man World 3 on the other hand, well, it might be pretty generic admittedly for that. So, but then again though, we'll discuss on that in another day. So anyway, all strawberries collected. How's that for that? So anyways, as you can see, in order to be able to get other sort of items this time around is the fact that if you see these little specific fruit icons, as you can see, that the ones I did manage to go as an orange, and basically that in order to be able to actually give me opportunities to get something out of it, we have to grab one of those fruits and then just simply bust out the chest instead of the forms of that specific door lock, unlike the ones in the original game. So yeah, that seems a little bit different enough as it is. And also the returning staple from the likes of Pac-Man World 1 is the metal power-up, which once again this allows you to actually walk underwater without even utilized to swimming and stuff like that. And just like in Pac-Man World 1, that you're going to be doing that more often from here, especially noticeable how the fact that until whenever we get onto the future worlds throughout the game, then you probably know what I'm talking about right here. So even then though, yeah, congratulations, we've now made it to the very end of this stage. So, but then again though, there was actually that one particular collectible I was missing on. Oh, wow. What is this, like a pinball machine or something like that? Anyway, so let's just go ahead and save our game quickly. And hopefully we should be able to move on to the next level, which, well, obviously, much like the forms of in Pac-Man World 1, although unlike in Pac-Man World 1, that as you guys who know, that definitely ever since the Journey Forms of in last year, that he did tackle for that game, but obviously he did manage to cut out some of those parts during World by World between two parts. This time around though, for this game, I'll be showing you guys one world per video, so as a result, it just makes the actual process a little bit more, well, tolerable. Alright, so the next level we have is Canyon Chaos, and fundamentally speaking, most of those levels can be pretty short as it is, although if you really want to get some distraction, mainly to be more specifically, if you really want to 100% it, that it might able to take a little bit of while. And speaking of which, actually, it's the fact that those of you probably wondering, what happens if you do manage to get yourselves 100% completed in certain levels? Well, as a matter of fact, if you do really want to get every single, well, Pac-Dot, every single fruit, then basically your reward you can get is the bonus token, which obviously that can be utilized for something which I'll explain more about that until likely at the very end of this Let's Play in general. Because again, we've only just got started with this for the most part though, so expecting these things can get a little bit more quicker and short depending on the forms of death situations coming up. So, yeah, much like the original game though, there might be a few times though, is the fact that sometimes I will able to actually lose lives continuously sometimes, but then again, we'll point at those out until whenever we get on to, well, the future parts of this game specifically. So even then though, that's all I can really say, all things considered. So either way though, let's grab an orange and grab another token, and I was gonna able to save that checkpoint for later, but I have no idea, I accidentally just grabbed it from there. So anyway though, so let's grab another token right here, which is kind of surprising because we've only got 16 of these so far. So because of that though, I think they did manage to contain like, I would say 8 of those tokens each, including 2 bonus ones specifically. Like I say, 2 bonus tokens is the fact that because, as I mentioned this before, you get another one of those tokens if you manage to fully 100% in every single part of the level. And the second bonus token you can only get is by doing time attacks, which, you know, think of like how it does it in the forms of in Crash Bandicoot 3 Warps, is the fact that every time when you finish the level, then the actual clock will start to show up, and then every time you're able to touch the clock, then you can able to participate in forms of time trials basically, which I might show that often during the extra video of this, but then again though, haven't exactly got into this point yet because this is the earliest point of the game so far. So, but I digress. So yeah, as you can tell, there's also another collectible that you can able to get in this game, which appears to be the returning Galaxians as in the forms of in the original game. And just like in the original game, oh, really? Oh, that was the first step of the playthrough. Anyway, let's try this again. But let's just... Good lord! What is wrong with me today? Okay, let's try this again. The Galaxians does make a return from the likes of the previous Pac-Man World game, except unlike in Pac-Man World, that if you somehow manage to grab the Galaxian, and then you have to take it all the way to that specific door, that just shows us the exact same item as in the forms of as what you got. In this game this time around though is the fact that in order to be able to actually access to these special mazes, as you can see here, that in order to be able to do those is the fact that you have to go through, well, you have to grab the Galaxian and that way you should be able to actually access to the actual maze themselves. And just like it was in Pac-Man World 1, it's more likely it's just like, depending on what level types you're in, it gets like a new, cooler environment as you can see, depending on what maze you're going to be in. So yeah, that seems pretty cool. And unlike in the original game though, that basically every time whenever you get hit by certain hazards, or ghosts for that matter, that normally though you still get vulnerable in terms of the forms of likely get invincibility frames, and then just continuously manage to walk and all that stuff. And then if you somehow die in Pac-Man World 1 during the forms of in a maze sequence, you can able to actually continue where you left off during the actual maze segments. In this game this time around though, it might actually play out pretty similar to the likes of the arcade original Pac-Man game. That basically you start things off with 3 lives, and then every time you get hit by ghosts, just like in the forms of the original arcade classic, you will die, and then if you somehow run out of lives, then the actual maze will be over. And as a result, if you somehow failed the actual maze challenges, you don't get the Galaxian item. But if you somehow complete it, such as I did one right here, then you can able to keep the actual Galaxian for that. And also, I think you get yourselves a freebie checkpoint here and there as well, so even then. Something's worth mentioning also is the fact that I'm pretty sure, unlike in Pac-Man World 1, that every time whenever you die in a level, and if you somehow manage to grab the checkpoint after that, or before that, basically you're gonna have to be able to, well, in the original Pac-Man World, your progress will be saved, depending on what stimulations we'll be handling with. In this game this time around though, assuming if you're able to activate that, the actual checkpoint, like I just did right there with the actual Galaxian thing. And then what happens is, if I somehow fell off the stage, while at the same time, while I did manage to do a lot of busy work when it comes to likely grabbing everything, turns out it's the fact that we have to re-grab these things all over again if you manage to able to accidentally die. But here's one cool thing about this game though, and at least I give this game some credit for, and that was the fact that I really love the loading screens, by the way. Because of that though, Pac-Man is usually going into these current situations and during certain levels, and also the level's title itself. And I just really love these loading screens in this game, even though it kind of feels like kind of similar to the ones in how it does it in Pac-Man World 1, except the fact that rather than just able to waiting for that, you know, the 8-bit rendition of Pac-Man managed to eat all the dots across the right side. So, but even then though, in this game this time around though, it just shows not only the level environment, but also the actual level's title card. And heck, even with the forms of seeing Pac-Man's craziest animations and stuff like that, which to me is kind of like the sight to see to behold. But that's probably just me. But as I said before, that this game also came out on the original Xbox, but the difference is between, you know, the actual release of the GameCube version compared to the forms of how it does it in, well, as far as the PS2 version is concerned, is the fact that most of those versions of this game came out in everywhere else, whilst the forms within the Xbox version is the only exception, because I'm pretty sure the Xbox version came out exclusively to America. So I have no idea why they haven't got its release in our country, in Europe, or anything like that, which I found was a little bit odd and strange, regrettably, but even then, that's just a little bit of a coincidence, that is. So, anyway, so let's go ahead and just be very careful around here and make sure we really can't afford able to mess up with our jumps at one form or another, Plus the camera decides to screw me up, as you can see. Yeah, there's a little bit of a nitpicking for this point, but I just want to point things out right away. Everything about this game can't be that perfect though, but it's just the fact that the camera can sometimes sometimes fight against with you sometimes. But I digress. So we need to grab this little shrinking power-up, as you can see, in order to be able to finish the level. And that's how it goes, basically, in terms of Canyon Chaos. So, pretty cool. Pretty cool for that, for the sake of this particular stage. Despite the fact that I accidentally died twice due to the forms of that Galaxian I was going to be going after. Oh, wait a minute. I was 99%. How much do I off by? You gotta be kidding me! One Pac-Dot left! One Pac-Dot left! I lost this by one Pac-Dot! Ah, dang it. I was so close. Anyways, let's move on to Pac-Dot Pond. And, hopefully, when that's been completed, then, but, the actual structure of the game might plays out pretty similar to the original game as well. That you get, like, 3 regular platforming levels, and then by the end of each world, you actually compete against with the boss at the end. So in this instance, is the fact that, do you remember the forms of in Pac-Man World 1, in, the Pirate World, that we did manage to, you know, completely done with the first 3 stages, which is based off from Pirate World, mainly with Bank Peculiar Beach and also Coast Bars Cove or something like that. Or I don't know. It has been quite a long time since I actually played Pac-Man World 1, even though despite the fact that I'm almost 100% everything on that game, because I'm pretty sure the only thing I haven't done though is the fact though, you know, with that the final bonus stage in the game, which is to be more specifically takes place in the mansion world. Oh man, I was literally that close to able to 100% everything on that bonus stage. But either way though, that's how it goes basically. So, and also, do you remember the forms of in well, in the second world in Pac-Man World, which appears to be the Ruins World, that was the only world that able to feature a lesser amount of stages, probably because of the actual giganticism or something like that in terms of the level's length or something. But either way though, again, it has been such a long time since I actually played the original game, of course. Well, at least ever since when Defi has managed to able to finish that Let's Play since 2019. Whilst usually every now and then, as you can see, that we're still on 2020, and this means, oh yes, Pac-Man is going to be turning into 40 years old this year. Which can be very much a very surprising moment, even though despite the fact there are some ups and downs in Journey Forms of in 2020 has to offer. Well, to be more specifically though, is the fact that with, you know, it's pretty obvious we're going to be mentioning about this right from the start, it's the coronavirus thing. And as a result, that will be the only major gripe I have with the year though, but anyway, let's not talk about that anymore, just because we're playing this, you know, this amazing game. In fact, whenever I managed the first time playing this, during the GameCube version, I was a bit struggled at first. But then every once in a while though, after playing this game several times in the past, even though despite the fact that I've managed to complete this 10 times by the way, and as a result, it never seemed able to board out of me, unlike the third game, which we'll get into until likely in the future. But either way though, let's not get ahead of ourselves at this point, you know, let's just not get ahead of ourselves. By the way, you know what these little Pac-Dots that we've already collected for the majority of the levels of this game? Unlike the original game though, is the fact that the only ability that you can't do every now and then is the fact that, you know, with the forms of that ability, they're able to throw these Pac-Dots just right at the forms of those enemies to create a nice little explosion wave. Well, that's no longer the case this time around in this game, which instead, that Pac-Man managed to got himself his air kick instead of the forms of, you know, tossing that little pellet as projectiles right at the enemies, which is kind of understandable, at least I'm pretty much used to it. So either way though, that's why I can really think about it. Alright, so here's the next maze right here. In order to get that though, is the fact that, well, we just have to simply just, well, use the metal power-up, and then you have to able to butt bounce the actual crate underwater, and that's how you get to it. Oh, by the way, something's worth mentioning also is the fact that you only have, like, let's just say, I said this before already, you only have like 3 tries in order to able to actually complete this. Because again, if you're low on lives, then obviously you would able to get kicked out of the actual, the bonus rooms, or the bonus rounds, or the bonus maze, if I like to specifically calling these things. And yeah, you can't really just really try to screw things up. If you really want to go for 100% completion, well, go right ahead, because that way you can able to actually have yourselves your spare time with that. So, well, unless if you really want to go for ultimate challenge up ahead, specifically, well, in between most of these other things, basically. So yeah, all these ghosts are back ever since in journey forms within the actual Pac-Man game, as to be expected. We still have Inky, Blinky, Pinky, and Clyde. So yeah, as a result, it might actually play out pretty similar to anything else for this part. However, there's one little thing that gets us a little bit of a corresponding error in between the forms within this game in particular compared to Pac-Man World 1. Most of these names are incorrect, which as a result, you'll probably see why whenever we get on to the first boss in the game. Oh yeah, there's gonna be every once in a while though, is the fact that I always get cornered by these ghosts every now and then. But luckily, much like the original game, specifically Pac-Man World 1, basically you can able to utilize those little magical portal things until you're able to go across the other side of the actual maze. Now once you're able to actually get these ghosts distracted, then you would be able to actually accomplish the actual things itself, such as that. Or such as that even, so... However, for the most part though, much like in Pac-Man World 1, I will try my best if I was able to find most of the mazes in this game, but not all of them, mind you, because let me tell you right from the start though, is the fact that it is so impossible to able to get 100% in this game for the sake of time, probably because of multitude of things. Even though it's good, we're able to add in replayability and stuff like that. So anyways, let's go ahead and just rev roll for this ramp here until we're able to go across the pit. So, either way though. Oh yeah, let's talk about the forms of the history of this game. That we used to did done both versions of this Let's Play, one of which is the forms of the GameCube version to start with, and then after that until it gets to April sometime back in 2012, despite the actual Let's Plays of these is no longer there, just because it's a little bit more redundant now. So because of that though, we tackled through the GameCube version first for some reason, and then the PlayStation 2 version for later. So as a result of that kinds of stuff though, it just makes things, well, awfully identical in between, depending on what versions you'll be playing. So as a result, yeah, for the sake of clarity, we'll have to mainly focus on one version as it is, so, but I digress. So we got about 27 of those tokens so far, which I'm quite surprised about that, and camera, can you not mess me up again, and thank you for giving me that blockage for that specific view, by the way. Anyway. So that pretty much takes care of the forms of Pac-Dot Pond. I do apologize for that particular background noise you're going to be hearing. That's only because that, I would say Silver managed to utilize his psychokinesis until he activates the actual Mo lore, which he'll be great from that. So, unfortunately I'm missing on 1 melon in between, so whatever, we'll just go ahead and move on. So yeah, here we go, on to the first boss in this game, which appears to be Blinky's frog. Or, to be more accurate, Clyde right there, because originally Clyde was supposed to be orange to begin with, so it makes it pretty obvious for the sake of time. So yeah, let's just see right here. Yeah, he's actually, okay, thank you for the hint right there. So yeah, this was without doubt one of the easiest bosses in the whole game. This is pretty obvious because of how the fact that, well, one obvious thing is the fact that, Clyde, or Blinky for that matter, that it sort of feels a bit confusing at times, especially noticeable how the fact that most of these names can get pretty confusing. Well, the two exceptions are pretty much okay for the most part, like the blue one is obviously Inky, and pink one is obviously Pinky, but the only two exceptions in this game which there are basically Blinky and Clyde, so I've no idea why they decided able to get like a sense of confusion between. So that's just how I think about it. So yeah, in this particular battle, here's the fact that in this first phase right here, you obviously have to pull off a butt bounce until you're able to actually deal the damage on Blinky's frog, or Clyde's frog, if I like to be more precise on that. And then onto the second phase we go. Instead of able to actually utilize the butt bounce, instead we have to rev roll onto its mouth, as you can see here. So as a result, you have to do this like 3 times in each phases, and then when you've done so already, then the entire battle will be, well, demolished on itself. So yeah, but then again, this is one of the easiest boss fights in the game. This is pretty obvious because it was on the first world in the game. And when you've done the boss fight, then you receive one of those golden fruits, as you can see here. In this case, we got ourselves the golden cherry. So I'll get into more details about what's going on in this the story of the game until specifically on Thursday, I'm afraid. So in the sake of time, we got the endings off here. So join me next time on Let's Play Pac-Man World 2. It's the fact that we're going to be hit on to the next world in this game, which appears to be the Forest World. And to start things off, we have Burgoyne or Burdoyne Woods. So this should be fun. So see you guys on Thursday. Later, fellas.